that now we can sleep at night. We feel safe. That was the initial reaction from the community, particularly the women. And then it was about, all the other things started to kick in, about food, about um, um,
Camp management.
hello Manzoor, how are you?
I'm fine. Nice to meet you again.
It's great to have you with us. ActionAid is celebrating 40 years, and you've been leading the board as the chairperson since 2017. So we felt that today, as we talk about the Rohingya exodus and influx into Bangladesh in 2017, how we engaged from ActionAid, and also we took up the campaign and advocacy for their rights. So I was wondering if you were to look back, some reflections from 2017.
Yes, I mean, a lot to reflect on. Basically, it was what 2016 when I became the chair of ActionAid.
17.
17?
Early 17.
Early 17, yeah. So that was the year,
Yes.
the big year.
Yes.
And then I was actually visiting Cox's in August. It was a private visit.
I see.
With my family.
Okay.
And that was when the refugees started coming in.
It was just the
August
Eid
25th.
holidays.
Yeah, it was over the Eid holidays.
Right.
And if you remember, I came back from Cox's and I rang you and said, Chef Farah, I've just heard all these people coming into Cox's Bazar, into Bangladesh.
Right.
And there was an amazing response locally. Right. To people who are raising money and the rest of it. Yeah. What can we do about it?
Absolutely.
And we really need to tell the rest of the world that this is something like this is happening. And it's terrible in terms of human cost. So then we basically, that's how it all started. I remember.
Yes, and we went in with humanitarian response because ActionAid has never worked with refugees or at such a scale with persons who are displaced. So we thought whatever learning we had from our humanitarian response, we could take it and start applying at the camps.
Right. So you went to Cox's in September.
Yeah.
And I remember you coming back and you telling us
emotional,
and obviously emotional, and basically the kind of the hardship that people were going through, and immediately you started putting resources together and getting some activities going. But at the same time, the local responders, if you remember, was just amazing.
It's the first month, I think it was basically the local responders because the Rohingyas were just coming in hundreds and thousands, and there was no way anyone could have been prepared.
Right.
But the local communities at least felt that they would open their doors and their homes and let share their food, and it was amazing.
There was no hesitation at all,
No, there
right?
wasn't. I think by 26th of, because they started coming from 25th, but 26th,
Exactly.
27.
And it was just unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I think we could see in the news and from other reports, we could see that the burning of the villages which were going on the other side, and there was no other option but to let these people in.
Absolutely.
And also later on, what we saw was quite amazing. Also in terms of the partnership that developed between local people, NGOs, international and national international agencies, government, military coming in. So it was just an incredible partnership that developed.
Yes, and
I would say
for Bangladesh, its own psyche experience of being refugees in 1971 probably had a major role in us getting motivated and moving.
Sure.
And we felt very strongly because if you remember, it was by late September of 2017 we organized a very quick seminar and we brought the photographs, we brought in international and national, the judiciary, academia, and so the institutions, representatives from media to try and highlight what was happening on the ground.
And I think we got a lot of support.
We did
at that meeting, and I know people were saying that some of the issues around the killings and the the crime that was being committed
Right.
in Myanmar, that should be taken up.
Yes.
And I think the proposal came that can we do something internationally, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and which was one of the reasons why in 2018, by April, we had come together.
Yeah.
The ActionAid, Center for Genocide Studies, Center for Peace and Justice, to organize the first international conference.
Yeah.
And the outcome of that conference, as you will remember, was
the Dhaka Declaration.
Exactly.
And
do you remember what was some of the highlights from the Dhaka?
I was kind of just having a look, and it was quite amazing looking at the declaration and the kind of points that were made.
Mm-hmm.
That way back in April 2018, we were talking about a return of repatriation of the refugees,
Right.
but it should be done in such a way it is sustainable, safe, secure, protected.
Voluntary.
You know.
Yeah.
And the fact that we were urging the international community to take the matter to the international arena, to international sort of tribunals,
right?
You know, wherever possible, to deal with the issue of justice and accountability. And we were also saying that the government of Bangladesh should also provide whatever is necessary for the upkeep of the refugees.
Absolutely.
But we also urge the international community to provide resources for that.
True.
So, I mean, very early on, we actually made those demands in the form of that Dhaka Declaration.
And if you look at the whole journey, I mean, this was 2018. By 2019 October, we were in The Hague with the ICC at the conclave that was organized, and most of the mobilization came from civil society, NGOs, women's organizations like Nari Popcorn. We all came together and we were able to try and make that connection with ICC, ICJ, the personnels there. And thanks to Gambia, the Justice Minister of Gambia, who took it on behalf of Gambia to the ICC. And one of the things that begs mentioning is it all happened in a very short time. And if you remember, in the seminar, we had representatives from international other countries. The special envoy of the Canadian Prime Minister had come and joined. We had Australian representatives. So we were able to mobilize around our
Absolutely.
conference international.
Absolutely.
So one part of our response from ActionAid has been on the justice side, but
justice and accountability
justice and accountability. But at the same time, we knew that there were 1+ million people living in the camps, on the ground, who needed support in multiple ways at multiple levels. And so we got very engaged in that, and now it's been 6 years plus.
So if I ask you, I mean, what were the first steps that ActionAid Bangladesh took in Cox's Bazar with the refugees? How did you start that whole process of humanitarian sort of support that you started to give?
Well, as I was mentioning, we had no prior experience of working with refugees or with such a large number of displaced persons. But whatever we had learned over the years, decades, from our humanitarian response is what we applied. And so it was more, at the beginning, it was about ensuring the essential services, about food, about water, sanitation, everything had to be done at a super speed.
Exactly.
Because these people had needs and we needed to do, and if you remember, the hills had been almost flattened, it become brown, and it was all we could see was plastic. But at that point, it was the essential services. But one thing which was very clear was the protection, working with women, and children, young people, the trauma that they had been through. How could we support them through that difficult time, and setting up psychosocial services. Now, we are not specialized in it, and Bangladesh, if you look at it, doesn't have that many psychosocial specialists, but we were able to work through this, have community level supporters, and then bring in experts, work around that, protection, building, we started building the centers for women.
Safe spaces,
Safe
right?
spaces,
Yeah.
yes, where they needed to ventilate. They needed to, first of all, the first things I remember was that they were saying that now we can sleep at night. We feel safe. That was the initial reaction from the community, particularly the women. And then it was about, all the other things started to kick in, about food, about
Camp management, I suppose, was also
yes,
an
camp
issue.
management, the livelihood, training, skills, all that. And interestingly, our camp management has been highly recognized, and we have been working in almost all the camps through.
You are also working with a lot of other organizations in Cox's Bazar, right? Not
Yes.
just national, but also international NGOs, but
Yes.
also in UN agencies.
Oh,
So,
yes.
I mean, there is this issue of coordination.
Mhm.
And how do you deal with this issue of coordination when you're dealing with so many different organizations? You have the government, you have the local authority. It's a huge challenge, isn't it?
It is, and I think it was hands-on learning, and when we faced a challenge, we tried to find a solution to it. A lot of it is about trust building, because we have to understand the refugees and their mindset and how we could support them. It was through learning, listening, what is important. We didn't try to come in with a prescription. We didn't think that one size fit all approach would work here. So a lot of it was that. Then we were trying to look at how the different constituencies have different needs. So we were working with young people, young girls, women. What is it that we could do? Building trust was important with the local authorities, and providing quality service. Our
Right.
performance was also one of the reasons why we were able to continue and build on that fact.
Right.
And I have a fantastic team. At the moment, there are almost 400 people working in Cox's Bazar for our initiative, the programs that we are running.
So you have actually, if I'm not mistaken, more people working in Cox's Bazar than in the rest of the country.
That's
Is
true.
that right?
That's true. Because the design of this support intervention is such that you need that many people, and trust building was important. Bringing in the experience and expertise was important. Rohingya community, after a point, were looking at how to build a capacity, how to do something new. It's not easy. So they needed to think beyond that. So we did creative programming. We brought in music. We brought in theater. We were working with them on designing different products and so on. So I think that partnership at the community level with the Rohingyas evolved, and we have been successful in working there for 6 years. But coming back to,
I was just going to ask you something about the whole issue of the international agencies, international organizations. How did they help you to coordinate this thing? Wasn't there a kind of a structure that was put together
yes,
in this whole business of how to bring different sectors together?
as you were probably aware, that in such circumstances where refugee camps and programs are run, the UN agencies develop, with its development partners, set up the architecture.
Right.
And for coordination.
Right.
And their cluster arrangements. There are specific thematic support teams working.
Right.
So in the case of the Cox's Bazar Rohingya camps, also the same was applied. And we needed to participate and share our thinking. But one of the things was that I felt that when you have a fly-in, fly-out consultant, they do have the expertise, but it requires the contextual understanding, the blending on the ground, and that is what we brought to the table.
Right.
That's how we were able to take up these issues. And I remember in the first 2-3 years, I was going from different countries to countries to try and put this issue on the agenda, talk to different actors, political actors, and we organize all the different conferences. we have been having annual conference with youth, Rohingya youth, diaspora in different parts of the world, trying to bring in their perspectives and
Sure.
listen to them and develop. We've published a few books with articles and from different contributors, and we work strongly also with Dhaka University and the Center for Genocide Studies. We work with the Center for Peace and Justice to come up with some of these research that you need to have the evidence to do evidence-based
Sure.
advocacy.
Sure.
So this is where we worked, and this is where I was going to ask you that today, when you reflect on it, do you feel that we have been able to impact on global leadership? Should we do more? Where is the Rohingya issue today?
Well, I mean, to give you an answer, I think we just have to go back and see what has happened over the last few years. I mean, unfortunately, COVID came in, and that created a huge disruption in terms of the humanitarian effort. As we all couldn't go in and do the work in the camps themselves. But
True, but despite that, the operations ran smoothly. And if you look at how the camp could have been infected, could have, people, the Rohingyas could have suffered hugely, but we were able to contain that.
So that was a huge achievement, right, wasn't it? Really, I mean, in terms of the COVID issue. But what we have also seen over the last few years, to answer your question, is that the diminishing resource flow.
Yes.
I mean, that has had a huge impact. I mean, basically, the first few years we had a lot of sympathy, a lot of countries came in, and a lot of resources came in.
True.
But with COVID, also we saw the setting in of the flow of resources going down.
True.
Basically, and now it has actually gone down quite a lot. So I think because of not just because of apathy, but I think because there are competing crises all around the world. So I think this is a reality that we will have to accept. The fact is that we will have to find our own resources to deal with this situation, given the fact that we ourselves do not have the resources. We are in a bit of a difficult situation.
But is it our responsibility to find the resources? Is it not the responsibility of the whole global leadership, international community?
It is the responsibility of the international community. But the reality, I think, is on the ground reality is, if you look at all the other refugee crises around the world, exactly the same thing has happened. And we have, as you know, I mean, with Ukraine, what has happened? The attention, Syria and other countries, shifted rapidly to those places. And also, I would say, some people would say that there is also a bit of double standard here. The way the global leadership responded to the Ukraine crisis, I don't think we have seen a similar sort of response when it came to either Rohingya issue or the refugees in Yemen. So there is that duplicity, I think, if I may use that word, which is there. But nevertheless, I think looking at it now, I mean, I think we have to really look ahead and see how we can deal with this situation. We have, I think, gone past the humanitarian stage. We have now moved to a protracted stage rather than the crisis stage. So with this situation now, the challenge is, how do we deal with this situation? How do we make the people who are in the refugee camps more independent, I would say.
And also not lose hope.
Because
that's a very scary situation.
Absolutely, you're talking about a huge population.
Yes.
I mean, a good friend of ours would say that the population of Bhutan came to Bangladesh, to Cox's Bazar, all of a sudden. So the refugees really outnumbered the local population. So that's a huge, number-wise, is a huge challenge.
Sure.
And the fact is that there is also a high rate of birth in the camps. There's a lot of young people growing up in the camps. So that's another big challenge. So if we do not occupy them productively, actively, then what will happen to these people?
And that's exactly why ActionAid's program has tried to target young people.
Mm-hmm.
We work with youth. and we've tried to develop their skill sets. We have been working with the women, young women, and skill sets in starting from producing their own clothes and stitching, or but now agroecology, where they don't have any land, but alternative, they're growing the agriculture products in sacks, in bags, wherever they could find some space and put some soil in it, and they have been very successful. So if you go to the camps, it's so green now. And we were also making the centers, the safe centers, very, very not only useful but also friendly, a place of peace. And fortunately, in 2022, we were selected for the Aga Khan Architecture Award for making a community center that is inclusive, that is catering to the women who are refugees, and who've been through such trauma. So our efforts to try and engage the community, the women, the young
And to make
people,
their
and the
lives
children, and make their lives even if a little bit better.
Yeah.
As I was mentioning, that we want the Rohingya to not be dehumanized, but to live with dignity, self-respect, and a purpose. And this is why the work that ActionAid is doing is on one level capacity building,
Yeah.
but also trying to come up with innovative engagement. And we would like to see that such initiatives are supported and not too often speak about fund cuts and fund shortages, because I don't think that sits well with this community. It feels that it has been forgotten.
Yeah.
And what would you suggest to
ActionAid
or
yeah.
the world at large?
No, I fully agree with you. I think we have gone past that stage of enter the phase where there need to be sort of other kind of assistance given to them. I would say, I would use the language of agency, that they should be responsible for their own lives. They should be able to stand on their own feet. They should be able to speak for themselves. That kind of capacity building work I think is very, very important in the refugee camps. I think it's very important, and organizations like ActionAid and others really should be focusing on that. And I know you are focusing on that. You are developing those projects whereby you're giving that kind of capacity to the refugees themselves. But I think as we move forward, there has to be more emphasis on this.
Absolutely. And I think this is where we all came together. And now that you are heading the Center for Peace and Justice, you're doing the research, and we are from ActionAid Bangladesh working on the program side and direct intervention, but also campaign policy advocacy and skills development, and taking it there. So we would like to see a continued support, and it should not be the lost community. It should not be a forgotten community. And we would like to see international leadership, the UN agencies, keep the Rohingya refugees at the center of all their commitments and support, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think you've used the word dehumanizing them. I think, or demonizing them. I think there is
we don't want either.
We don't want either of those things happening.
Right.
We want, as we already discussed, we want to actually give them the place from where they can speak for themselves positively. Absolutely. And see how we can actually deal with this issue in a constructive manner, as you all are doing in Cox's Bazar. I think that needs to be kept in mind. I think this is paramount importance.
And we strongly believe that they need to believe in themselves, have the confidence, they need to have a dream, and they have something to look forward to. Subsistence living or just existing cannot be the choice of any community, whether you are a citizen or a refugee. And in this case, we strongly feel that the whole world should take their concerns, their aspirations into consideration and come forward. So thank you, Manzoor, for your time today, and we will continue with this work, I think, and the conversation, and we'll have to be at different spaces to take this forward, whether it's on the justice part or on the programmatic and support side.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure having you.